Hey there, I'm Asha Junot, and you're listening to This Hope Podcast. You being here is no small thing, and my hope is to fill your ears and your heart with words that invite us to lean in, stretch out our arms, and take hold of what will satisfy our souls. Wherever you are, wonder, connection, and hope are within reach. Come and see. Hello and welcome to This Hope Podcast, episode number 3. I don't know when I'll stop announcing which episode we're on. I'm sorry, maybe at number 10. I don't know. It's kind of like when someone has a baby and keeps saying their age in months well after anyone has any clue what they're even talking about. I promise I won't be welcoming you to podcast number 52. We'll lose track at some point when we're metaphorically checking each other's teeth. But welcome back. Today we are talking about hope. Now, I told you that we're going to hear a lot about hope here in this space. I mean, it is the name, This Hope. And the thing about hope is, there are different kinds of hope. There's this little small hopes that we don't even really probably consider as hope, but it is hope nonetheless, hope that, when you sit down, the chair is going to hold you. Hope that, your pen is going to work when you pick it up and start to write something. Hope that your dessert or your casserole will turn out well for your guests that are coming over. Those are little hopes that we maybe don't even think about throughout the day, but we have a lot of hope in the little things around us. There's also hope for things. We hope for things. We hope for healing. We hope for reconciliation. We hope for companionship. We hope for children. We hope for jobs. And then there's hope in something. And that's the most powerful hope. Because what we put our hope in is what defines us. It's the foundation of our lives. What we put our hope in matters more than anything. And maybe what you put your hope in isn't something that you've thought much about. Maybe, consciously, but subconsciously, we are all putting our hope in something because that's how we were made. That's how we exist. Humans are hardwired for hope. And we will always hope in something. One way to figure out what it is that you're putting your hope in is to ask yourself, where do I turn for fulfillment? Where do I turn when I'm feeling down? Where do I turn for that joy? Where do I turn for peace? Where do I turn for soul satisfaction? That is what you're putting your hope in. That person, place, thing, or ideal, that is what your hope is in. The book of Lamentations is one of my most favorite books of the Bible because it is so raw and real and honest. And specifically chapter 3. It is such a doozy, but it is such a clear picture of putting our hope in the only thing that will satisfy. It's a picture of the different kinds of hope. I want to read chapter 3 to you in its entirety. It is, like I said, it's kind of intense and the language is strong. And I love it. I love the honesty. So it says, I am the man who has seen affliction under the rod of wrath. God has driven and brought me into darkness without any light. Surely against me he turns his hand again and again the whole day long. He has made my flesh and my skin waste away. He has broken my bones. He has besieged and enveloped me with bitterness and tribulation. He has made me dwell in darkness like the dead of long ago. He has walled me about so that I cannot escape. He has made my chains heavy. Though I call and cry for help, he shuts out my prayer. God has blocked my ways with blocks of stones. He has made my path crooked. He is a bear lying in wait for me, a lion in hiding. He turned aside my steps and tore me to pieces. He has made me desolate. He bent his bow and set me as a target for his arrows. He drove into my kidneys the arrows of his quiver. I have become the laughingstock of all peoples, the object of their taunts all day long. He has filled me with bitterness. He has sated me with wormwood. He has made my teeth grind on gravel. He's made me cower in ashes. My soul is bereft of peace. I have forgotten what happiness is. So intense. So intense. I think the part that gets me the most is like, just that he's being so honest with God that this is my felt experience, God. It feels like you're a lion and a bear shredding me to pieces. It feels like you've set me up and you're shooting arrows in my kidneys. It feels like you've curb stomped me. Like he said, my teeth grind on the gravel. Now, this book was written by the prophet Jeremiah. And Jeremiah is writing this after God's people have been attacked by the enemy, taken captive, and taken into exile. Jeremiah was a prophet to the people, and he was a mouthpiece for God, just begging the people to return to God, to return to the God who loves them, who created them, who called them and set them apart and wants them to be this beautiful showpiece for the world of, look, this is what life in relationship with me looks like. And yet the people of Israel, even though God proved his love over and over and over again, proved his power, proved his willingness and ability to provide for them, protect them, give them limitless joy and peace and abundance and goodness, they turned away from him. Even after God's relentless pursuit of his people over hundreds of years, they tried to do it on their own. They forgot God's goodness and turned away. And so God allows the natural consequences of their actions to happen. His people are attacked by an enemy, taken captive, carried away from their home into exile to be slaves. And this is where the book of Lamentations comes in. Jeremiah is beside himself over just the destruction that sin causes. And so he lists all of these felt realities. Like, this is how it feels. And so after describing all of that, he says, my endurance has perished, and so has my hope from the Lord. He goes on to say, remember my affliction and my wanderings, the wormwood and the gall, my soul continuously remembers it, remembers all this destruction. And it's bowed down within me. Like I can't even stand up when I think about all of this destruction. But this I call to mind. And he's about to list this that he's talking about. And he says, this, but this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. And I want to stop there for a second because 3 verses earlier, in verse 18, after verses 1 through 17 are him listing all of this felt reality of God curb stomping him and using him as target practice and shredding him apart like a bear and a lion would. He says in verse 18, my endurance has perished and so has my hope. Like my hope is dead. And then 3 verses later, he says, but this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. And it sounds confusing. It's like, wait, I thought you said your hope was gone, but now you're saying you have hope again. Let me read what is giving him hope. It says, the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore, I will hope in him. So that's what he's calling to mind, giving him hope. But it still seems confusing because it's like you just said you didn't have any hope, but now you have hope. The cool thing about this is that it's actually 2 different words for hope. And I think it gives us such a beautiful picture of the difference between hoping for and hoping in. So the first, when he says, my hope is gone, my hope is dead, it's this word tokaleth, which is really talking more about like this hope for prosperity, this desire for like a good life, a hope for good things in life. That is what he's saying is dead and gone. But then when he says, but this I remember and I have hope, that word for hope is the word yakal. And that word for hope is rooted in the knowledge of God's goodness. It means to expectantly wait on God and his goodness. So Jeremiah is saying, my hope for life, my hope for anything good in this world, anything good to come from this world, my hope for prosperity, even my desire to live is gone. It's gone because this world has crushed me. Sin and the destruction that it has caused has crushed me. And yet, I think of your goodness and your faithfulness and how your mercy is new every morning, and I have hope. Hope in God's goodness. So even when we have no hope for good things to happen, no hope for life, even no future hope, we can still have hope in God's goodness. There is a difference, and it matters what we put our hope in. Putting our hope in this world and this life and the idea that like, oh, it will somehow all work out, it's always going to fail us because we are literally promised that this world as it is will not work out. But God, in his abundant love and infinite kindness, is using even the very worst to bring about the very best. God and his love are what will always work out. This world often gives us nothing to hope for. And putting our hope in this world and the idea that it will all work out is just always going to fail us. It will leave us saying, I look at all this destruction around me and my endurance is gone and I have no hope. It's perished. But this I call to mind, and I have hope. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore, I will hope in him. Experiencing the brokenness of this world without the hope of Jesus, without putting our hope in Jesus, just doesn't make sense. Believing and receiving God's love is not a crutch for the weak. It's the very legs we were created to stand on. This hope. Hope in the only thing that will never fail us, fault us, shame us, or shock us in the worst way. God's love. Hope in God's love. Trying to get through this life on your own isn't strong, it's wrong. It's poking a hole in the last life preserver when we're drowning. It's burning the rope that's hanging down the well we're at the bottom of. God created us from himself, for himself. Our hearts are made out of his, and his heart is where we are meant to find our home forever. So the pull toward Jesus in the midst of pain is not you being weak. It's you being who you were created to be. Putting our hope in the only thing that will never fail us. So that even when we have no hope, we can still have this hope. I'm honored to journey together, friends. And I pray that everything we say and do here will help us get to know God more in this minute than we did in the last. Because knowing God is how we can say that we have hope, this true hope in God's goodness, even when we don't have hope. And getting to know God is the only way to get to that place where our souls are satisfied. Today's the day, friend. This Hope podcast is a series on the Wellspring Pensacola podcast. You can expect new episodes right here on the 1st, 3rd, and 5th Tuesdays of every month. If you'd like to connect in between, you can find me on Instagram at Asha Junot. That's ASHAJUNEOH, or at ashajuno.com. Until next time, sending you hugs and hope.